Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the sky turned dark. He looked up from his newspaper and saw something that made his blood run cold. Massive ships were descending through the clouds above Chicago. They were bigger than any aircraft carrier he had ever seen during his time in the Marines. The ships moved silently through the air like giant metal whales swimming through an ocean of clouds. People on the street began pointing and shouting. Cars stopped in the middle of the road as drivers got out to stare at the impossible sight above them. Jake grabbed his phone to call his daughter, but the screen was completely black. He tried pressing the power button, but nothing happened. Around him, other people were having the same problem. Cell phones were dead. Car engines that had been running just moments before suddenly went quiet. The alien ships settled over the city like storm clouds. Jake counted at least 12 of them spread across the Chicago skyline. Each ship was dark gray with strange symbols glowing along their sides. They hovered about 200 feet above the tallest buildings. The silence was terrifying. No engines. No sound at all except for the panicked voices of people in the streets below. Then the ships began to speak. A voice boomed across the entire city. It spoke in perfect English, but with a cold, mechanical tone that made Jake's skin crawl. Citizens of Earth, you will remain calm. You will not resist. Your planet now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You are valuable resources that will serve our colonies across the galaxy. Jake felt his military training kick in. This was an invasion. Real aliens were actually invading Earth, and they were talking about humans like they were cattle. He looked around at the confused and frightened faces of the people near him. Most of them were just standing there in shock. Some were crying. Others were running in random directions with nowhere to go. All electronic devices have been disabled for your safety, the alien voice continued. You will gather in designated collection areas. Families will be kept together during processing. Resistance will result in immediate termination. Processing. The word made Jake's stomach turn. These aliens were not here to make contact or study humans. They were here to take people away, to make them slaves on other worlds. Jake had seen enough war to know what processing meant when invaders talked about civilians. Across town at Northwestern University, Dr. Lisa Grant was in her laboratory when all the lights went out. She had been working on her quantum field research when the power grid failed. But something strange was happening. Her experimental equipment was still running. The quantum field generator was humming quietly in the corner, while everything else in the building had gone dark. Lisa ran to the window and saw the alien ships hanging over the city like deadly storm clouds. Her scientific mind immediately began analyzing what she was seeing. The electromagnetic pulse that had disabled all electronics was incredibly sophisticated. It had somehow targeted specific types of technology while leaving others untouched. Her quantum equipment operated on different principles than normal electronics. The aliens apparently did not understand how her devices worked. She grabbed her notebook and began writing down everything she observed. If humanity was going to survive this invasion, someone needed to understand the enemy's technology. The aliens had made their first mistake by not disabling her research equipment. Lisa might be the only person on Earth who still had working technology that could help fight back. Meanwhile, in a construction site on the south side of Chicago, Pete Johnson was trying to figure out why his electric drill had stopped working. He had been installing drywall when everything went silent. The power tools were dead, but his hammer still worked perfectly. His handsaw could still cut wood. The simple mechanical tools that had built human civilization for thousands of years were completely unaffected by whatever the aliens had done. Pete looked up at the alien ships through the unfinished roof of the building. He was a simple man who worked with his hands for a living. He did not understand advanced technology or space travel, but he understood tools. He understood that the aliens had stopped the complex machines, but left the basic ones alone. That seemed like a very important thing to remember. The alien voice spoke again from the ships above. Collection will begin in 1 hour. Citizens will gather at marked locations. Children and elderly will be processed first. Able-bodied adults will be prepared for transport to mining colonies. Skilled technicians will be assigned to maintenance duties. Jake Morrison knew he had to act fast. The aliens were giving people time to gather at collection points, but he had no intention of walking into their trap. He started moving through the crowds on the street, looking for anyone who might be useful in a fight. His military experience told him that the first few hours of any invasion were crucial. If humans could organize resistance quickly, they might have a chance. He found Kelly Brown trying to help an injured woman near a crashed car. Kelly had been an Army medic before becoming a nurse at Chicago General. She looked up at Jake with determined eyes that told him she was thinking the same thing he was. They were not going to surrender without a fight. "We need to find others," Jake said quietly. "Police, military, anyone with training." Kelly nodded. "The hospital is only 6 blocks away. If the aliens disabled all electronics, people are going to be dying from lack of medical equipment. We need to help them, but we also need to organize." They began moving through the panicked crowds toward the hospital. Along the way, they found Tony Martinez, a city engineer who had been working on the subway system when the invasion began. Tony explained that all the electronic control systems were dead, but the basic mechanical infrastructure was still intact. Water pumps driven by simple motors were still working. Gas lines were still flowing. The aliens had targeted computers and advanced electronics, but left the fundamental systems alone. Amy Davis joined their growing group near Grant Park. She was an elementary school teacher who had been leading her class on a field trip when the ships arrived. Her students were terrified, but she had managed to keep them calm by turning the situation into an adventure story. Amy understood people and how to keep them focused during crisis. She would be valuable for organizing civilian resistance. Their small group moved through the city. They began to see the true scope of what was happening. Alien shuttles were landing in parks and parking lots. Tall gray beings in metallic suits were emerging from the ships. They carried strange weapons that looked like crystalline rods. The aliens moved with cold efficiency as they set up collection points exactly as their announcement had promised. But something was wrong with their plan. The aliens had expected humans to gather at the collection points voluntarily. Instead, most people were hiding or running away. The invaders seemed confused by this resistance. Their body language suggested they were not used to prey that refused to cooperate with its own capture. Jake realized that humanity might have one crucial advantage. The aliens had conquered other worlds before, but those civilizations had apparently been more cooperative. Humans were not following the script that the Zephyrians expected. That confusion might be enough to create opportunities for resistance. 3 days had passed since the alien ships arrived over Chicago. Jake Morrison and his group had found shelter in an abandoned warehouse on the west side of the city. The building was old enough that it had very little electronic equipment for the aliens to disable. Simple mechanical locks still worked. Hand pumps could still move water through old pipes. Basic tools could still cut and build. The aliens had set up processing centers in Grant Park, Millennium Park, and Navy Pier. Humans who went to these locations voluntarily were fitted with metal collars around their necks. The collars were supposed to make people calm and obedient. Jake had watched from a distance as families walked into the processing centers looking scared, but walked out looking blank and empty. The collars were some kind of mind control device. But something was going wrong with the alien plan. Kelly Brown had been observing the processed humans through binoculars from a nearby rooftop. She reported that the collars were not working as well as the aliens expected. Some humans were still showing signs of fear and anger even after being fitted with the devices. Others were removing the collars entirely when the aliens were not watching. "Their mind control is not perfect," Kelly explained to the group. "I saw a woman throw her collar into the lake when she thought no one was looking. The aliens had to put a new one on her 3 times yesterday." Tony Martinez had been exploring the city's underground systems. The subway tunnels were perfect for moving around without being seen by the alien patrols above ground. He had discovered that other groups of humans were also hiding and organizing resistance. Police officers, firefighters, and military personnel were forming small units throughout the city. They were all learning the same important lesson. The aliens had expected humans to give up quickly, like other conquered species had done. Amy Davis had become the group's expert on alien behavior. She watched the Zephyrian soldiers during their patrols and noticed patterns in how they acted. The aliens seemed confused when humans did not follow their orders immediately. They appeared to have rules and procedures for everything, but those rules did not account for unpredictable human behavior. They act like they are following a manual, Amy observed. When something does not go according to their plan, they seem lost for a few seconds before trying the same approach again. Dr. Lisa Grant had been working in her laboratory, which remained hidden in the university basement. Her quantum equipment was still functioning perfectly while all other electronics in the city remained dead. She had made an important discovery about the alien technology. The electromagnetic field that disabled human electronics was not random. It was specifically designed to target silicon-based computer systems and certain types of electrical circuits. Lisa realized that the aliens had studied other civilizations before invading Earth. Their weapon was designed to disable the most common types of technology found across the galaxy, but human technology had developed along slightly different paths than alien science expected. The Zephyrians had never encountered quantum field manipulation like Lisa's research equipment used. More importantly, Lisa discovered that simple electrical devices could be modified to resist the alien interference. A basic radio could be rebuilt with different components to work even under the electromagnetic suppression. This meant humans could potentially restore communication networks using old-fashioned technology that the aliens had dismissed as primitive. The first real test of human resistance came when a group of alien soldiers attempted to capture civilians hiding in a subway station. Jake Morrison led a team of 12 people armed with construction tools and improvised weapons. Pete Johnson had taught them how to use power tools as weapons. Hand-crank drills could punch through alien armor. Mechanical saws could cut through their equipment. The aliens were not prepared for humans who fought with tools instead of proper weapons. Their armor was designed to stop energy beams and projectile weapons, but it could not handle a construction worker with a sledgehammer who was angry about his family being taken away. Pete Johnson himself took down 2 alien soldiers using nothing but a crowbar and 20 years of experience breaking apart old buildings. The battle in the subway was brief but shocking for both sides. The aliens had never faced enemies who used improvised weapons with such deadly effectiveness. Humans had never fought beings from another world before, but the aliens retreated first. They called for reinforcements and abandoned their attempt to capture the civilians in the station. Kelly Brown treated the wounded after the fight. She discovered something important about alien biology. The Zephyrians healed much slower than humans did. Small wounds that would barely slow down a human. Soldiers seemed to cause them significant problems. Their bodies were not designed for the kind of brutal close combat that humans specialized in. Word of the subway battle spread through the hidden human networks. Other resistance groups began organizing similar attacks. The aliens found themselves facing enemies in every neighborhood, using weapons they could not predict or counter effectively. Humans were fighting with baseball bats, kitchen knives, gardening tools, and anything else they could find. The Zephyrians responded by increasing their patrols and trying to capture more humans for processing. But this only made the situation worse from their perspective. Every raid led to more fighting. Every fight led to more human casualties, which made the remaining humans even angrier and more determined to fight back. Amy Davis noticed that the aliens were starting to show signs of stress. Their movements became less coordinated. They made more mistakes during patrols. Some of them seemed afraid to enter certain areas of the city where resistance was strongest. The invaders who had conquered dozens of worlds were becoming nervous about fighting humans. Dr. Lisa Grant made another breakthrough in her research. She discovered that the alien mind control collars worked by suppressing certain brain chemicals that controlled fear and aggression. But human brain chemistry was more complex than the aliens had expected. The collars could reduce fear, but they could not eliminate the human instinct to protect family and home. This explained why some humans were still fighting back even after being processed. The collars made them calmer, but they could not destroy the deep human drive to survive and protect others. The aliens had built their entire empire on the idea that fear was the only thing that made species fight back. They did not understand that humans could be motivated by love, anger, and determination even when they were not afraid. Jake Morrison realized that humanity had found the enemy's weakness. The Zephyrians were used to fighting civilizations that surrendered once their technology was disabled and their populations were frightened into submission. They had never faced a species that became more dangerous when backed into a corner. Every human who saw family members taken away became a potential soldier. Every neighborhood that was raided became a base for resistance operations. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to collect slaves. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand and could not control. The hunt was about to begin, but the Zephyrians were starting to realize they might not be the hunters. Dr. Lisa Grant had been working for 18 hours straight in her hidden laboratory beneath Northwestern University. She had not slept properly in a week, but the breakthrough she had made was worth the exhaustion. The secret to defeating the Zephyrian technology was sitting right in front of her on a workbench that looked like it belonged in a garage rather than a research facility. Lisa had discovered that the alien electromagnetic field had a fatal weakness. The Zephyrians had designed their suppression system based on universal constants that worked throughout most of the galaxy, but Earth was different. The planet's magnetic field and gravitational anomalies created unique conditions that the aliens had not accounted for when they built their invasion fleet. She had taken apart a simple kitchen microwave and rebuilt it using components from her quantum field generator. The result was a device that could disrupt alien technology from a distance of almost 50 yards. When she tested it on a piece of captured Zephyrian equipment, the alien device literally exploded in a shower of sparks and melted metal. The key was in the frequency patterns. Human technology used electromagnetic radiation in ways that the aliens found completely unpredictable. A modified hairdryer could overload their communication systems. A rebuilt car stereo could scramble their navigation equipment. The more primitive the original human device, the more devastating it became when enhanced with Lisa's quantum modifications. Jake Morrison received Lisa's message through the ham radio network that Tony Martinez had helped establish using pre-digital radio equipment. The message was simple but revolutionary. Bring her any electronic device that was built before the year 2000, and she could turn it into a weapon that would make the aliens run in terror. Jake's team began raiding abandoned electronics stores and garage sales throughout the city. They collected old televisions, ancient computers, vintage radios, and obsolete appliances. Lisa worked like a mad scientist, tearing apart each device and rebuilding it with quantum components. Within 3 days, she had created an arsenal of weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum but could destroy alien technology with devastating effectiveness. The first field test came when a Zephyrian patrol attempted to capture civilians near Lincoln Park. Jake Morrison and Pete Johnson approached the aliens carrying what looked like an old television set from the 1980s. The alien soldiers pointed their crystal weapons at the humans and ordered them to surrender. Pete plugged the modified television into a portable generator and turned it on. The screen flickered to life, showing static and random colors. The alien weapons immediately began sparking and smoking. Within seconds, the Zephyrian soldiers were holding useless metal rods instead of deadly energy weapons. Their armor started, making alarming beeping sounds before going completely silent. The aliens tried to retreat, but their communication equipment had also been destroyed by Lisa's weapon. They could not call for backup or report what had happened. Jake's team surrounded the confused invaders and captured them using nothing more than rope and determination. It was the first time humans had taken Zephyrian prisoners, instead of the other way around. Meanwhile, across town, Carl Phillips was having his own breakthrough at a small airport outside Chicago. Carl had worked for NASA for 15 years before, retiring to become a flight instructor. When the invasion began, he had been teaching a student to fly a small single-engine aircraft. The plane's simple mechanical systems were completely unaffected by the alien electromagnetic field. Carl realized that human spacecraft technology might be more effective against the aliens than anyone had imagined. The Zephyrians had shields and defensive systems designed to stop energy weapons and advanced projectiles. But their defenses were calibrated for threats that used technology similar to their own. A simple chemical rocket or a kinetic projectile might pass right through their shields, like they were not even there. He began modifying small aircraft to carry improvised weapons. Crop dusters could drop modified electronics that would disrupt alien equipment over a wide area. Light planes could ram alien shuttles and destroy them through pure kinetic impact. The aliens had never encountered an enemy that used controlled crashes as a military tactic. The first aerial attack came when Carl led a formation of 6 small planes against an alien transport ship that was loading captured humans for transport, off-planet. The Zephyrian vessel was enormous and heavily armored, but its shields were not designed to stop simple aircraft traveling at high speed. Carl's plane struck the transport ship near what appeared to be its main engine. The impact tore a hole in the alien hull and caused internal explosions that lit up the evening sky. The transport ship crashed into Lake Michigan, taking dozens of alien soldiers with it, but releasing nearly 300 human prisoners who swam to shore as free people. Back in the city, Amy Davis had been organizing civilian resistance using techniques she had learned as a teacher. She understood that people fought harder when they were protecting something they cared about, rather than just trying to survive. Amy helped families and neighborhoods form defense groups that used local knowledge and improvised weapons to make alien patrols impossible. Her most successful innovation was the block party ambush. Amy would organize what appeared to be a normal neighborhood gathering with food and music. When alien patrols came to investigate or capture civilians, they would find themselves surrounded by dozens of humans armed with modified household appliances and gardening tools. The aliens could not distinguish between a genuine community event and a military trap until it was too late. Kelly Brown had established a medical network that treated both human and alien wounded. She made a disturbing discovery about Zephyrian biology that changed how the resistance approached combat. The aliens healed very slowly from physical injuries, but they were extremely vulnerable to infection by Earth bacteria. Minor cuts that would heal on a human in days could kill a Zephyrian in weeks if left untreated. This biological weakness meant that humans did not need to win decisive battles to defeat alien forces. They just needed to wound the invaders and wait for Earth's microbiology to finish the job. Kelly began developing biological weapons using common soil bacteria and water from polluted areas of the city. The aliens' advanced medical technology could not cope with organisms they had never encountered before. Dr. Lisa Grant made her most important discovery when she examined captured alien equipment more closely. The Zephyrian technology was incredibly sophisticated, but it was also completely standardized. Every device used the same basic principles and components. This meant that a weapon designed to disrupt one piece of alien equipment would work on all of them. She developed a master frequency generator that could disable every piece of Zephyrian technology within a mile radius. The device was built using components from a 1970s radio, a microwave oven, and parts of her quantum field equipment. It looked like something a crazy inventor might build in his basement, but it was the most powerful anti-alien weapon ever created by human hands. The Resistance was ready to take the fight to the next level. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to harvest a primitive species using overwhelming technological superiority. Instead, they had awakened a civilization that turned every tool into a weapon and every defeat into a lesson for victory. News of the human victories spread across the planet faster than the aliens could stop it. Tony Martinez had worked with ham radio operators around the world to create a global communication network using technology so old that the Zephyrians did not even recognize it as a threat. Farmers in Iowa were talking to resistance fighters in London using radio equipment that their grandfathers had built during World War II. Each region developed its own unique approach to fighting the invaders. Roy Clark was a corn farmer in Nebraska who had turned his entire operation into a fortress. Roy had modified his combine harvester into a mobile weapons platform that could cut through alien armor like wheat stalks. His threshing machines had been rebuilt to process Zephyrian equipment instead of grain. The aliens learned to avoid farmland. After Roy's neighbors began using irrigation systems to spray modified pesticides that dissolved alien technology on contact. In Detroit, factory worker Nina Lopez had organized the automotive plants into resistance manufacturing centers. The assembly lines that once built cars were now producing improvised weapons and armor for human fighters. Nina discovered that the hydraulic systems used in car manufacturing could be modified to power weapons that fired industrial bolts with enough force to penetrate alien shields. Her workers were building human battlesuits using car parts and welding equipment. The aliens tried to respond by deploying their elite shock troops. These were Zephyrian soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds and never faced serious resistance. They arrived on Earth expecting to crush the human rebellion with overwhelming force and advanced tactics. Instead, they encountered something their training had never prepared them for. Humans did not fight like other species. Most civilizations used organized military units with clear command structures and predictable strategies. Humans formed hunting packs that attacked from multiple directions using tactics that seemed to change from moment to moment. Jake Morrison had studied pack hunting behavior during his military service. He realized that humans were naturally suited for group combat in ways that other species were not. A team of humans could coordinate complex attacks without radio communication, using only hand signals and intuitive understanding of each other's movements. The aliens could not predict or counter this type of fighting because their own species had never developed similar abilities. The battle for downtown Chicago became a perfect example of human pack tactics. Jake coordinated 17 different resistance groups in a simultaneous assault on the main Zephyrian command post. Each group attacked from a different direction using different weapons and strategies. The aliens found themselves fighting construction workers with modified power tools, teachers with weaponized classroom supplies, and doctors with medical equipment turned into combat gear. Amy Davis led a group of parents who had lost children to the alien processing centers. They fought with a fury that terrified the Zephyrian soldiers. Amy had learned that humans became exponentially more dangerous when they were motivated by grief and revenge. The aliens could not understand why these civilians would risk their own lives to attack superior forces with inadequate weapons. The parent fighters used their knowledge of the city to set traps that the aliens could not detect. They knew which buildings had basements that connected to old tunnel systems. They understood which streets had loose manhole covers that could be used as improvised explosives. The aliens had superior technology, but the humans had superior knowledge of their own territory. Dr. Lisa Grant had been working with resistance cells around the world to distribute her weapon designs. Scientists in Tokyo had built a massive version of her frequency generator that could disable alien ships from orbit. Engineers in Berlin had created portable versions that individual soldiers could carry into battle. Researchers in Sydney had discovered that common household chemicals could be combined to create substances that were toxic to Zephyrian biology. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that learned and adapted faster than their own command structure could respond. Every tactic the Zephyrians used against humans was analyzed, understood, and countered within days. Every piece of alien technology that was captured was reverse-engineered and turned into a weapon against its creators. Kelly Brown had established field hospitals that treated human wounded while studying captured alien prisoners. She made a breakthrough discovery about Zephyrian psychology that changed how the Resistance approached combat. The aliens were deeply afraid of disorder and unpredictability. Their entire civilization was based on control and systematic approaches to every problem. Humans represented chaos incarnate from the Zephyrian perspective. Every human acted differently. Every group used different tactics. Every battle developed in ways that alien computers could not predict or model. The psychological stress of fighting such an unpredictable enemy was causing breakdowns in alien command structures. Carl Phillips had organized pilot networks across North America that were using civilian aircraft to hunt alien shuttles and transport ships. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy that used suicide attacks as standard tactics. Human pilots would ram their planes into alien vessels without hesitation, treating their own lives as acceptable losses if it meant destroying enemy equipment. The aliens could not understand this behavior. In their civilization, individual survival was the primary motivation for all actions. They could not comprehend humans who would sacrifice themselves to protect strangers or to achieve military objectives. This made human tactics completely unpredictable from the Zephyrian point of view. Pete Johnson had become a legend among construction workers turned resistance fighters. He had developed techniques for using industrial equipment as weapons that were being copied across the globe. His crowbar fighting style was taught to human fighters from Canada to Mexico. His methods for converting power tools into armor-piercing weapons were spreading through resistance networks worldwide. The aliens made their biggest mistake when they tried to use human prisoners as hostages to force the resistance to surrender. They announced that captured humans would be executed if the fighting did not stop within 24 hours. The Zephyrians expected this threat to break human morale and force them to negotiate. Instead, the hostage threat had the opposite effect. Humans became even more determined to fight. Families of captured prisoners joined resistance groups. Civilians who had been hiding came out to volunteer for combat missions. The aliens had accidentally unified the human population against them by threatening the people that fighters were trying to protect. The Zephyrian command structure began to fracture under the stress of fighting an enemy they could not understand or defeat. Ship commanders were requesting transfers away from Earth duty. Elite soldiers were refusing orders to engage human forces. The systematic conquest that had worked on dozens of other worlds was falling apart against a species that refused to follow any system at all. The aliens were beginning to realize that they were no longer the hunters. Somewhere during the invasion, the roles had reversed. The predators had become the prey, and their prey was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. The final battle began at dawn on a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 weeks after the aliens first arrived on Earth. Jake Morrison stood on the roof of a Chicago skyscraper, watching as human forces moved into position around every alien ship in the city. Similar scenes were playing out in every major city across the planet. The time for hiding and small attacks was over. Humanity was ready to drive the invaders away from their world forever. Dr. Lisa Grant had spent the previous night making final adjustments to her master frequency generator. The device now filled an entire city block, built from thousands of pieces of old electronic equipment that volunteers had collected from across the Midwest. Television sets from the 1960s formed the base structure. Radio equipment from the 1940s provided the power amplification. Microwave ovens from every decade since they were invented created the frequency modulators that would tear apart alien technology at the molecular level. The plan was beautifully simple. Every resistance group on Earth would attack their local alien forces at exactly the same moment. The coordinated assault would prevent the Zephyrians from calling for reinforcements or retreating in an organized fashion. Lisa's frequency weapons would disable their technology, while human fighters armed with improvised weapons would finish the job. Carl Phillips led the aerial assault over Lake Michigan. 57 pilots flying everything from crop dusters to passenger jets had volunteered for the mission. Most of them knew they would not survive, but they also knew that their sacrifice would cripple the alien fleet. Carl flew a modified business jet loaded with homemade explosives and Lisa's frequency generators. His target was the largest Zephyrian command ship, a vessel the size of 3 aircraft carriers floating above downtown Chicago. The attack began when Helen Wright activated the first frequency generator from her suburban home. Helen was a mother of 3 who had never been in the military or worked with advanced technology. But she had lost her youngest daughter to the alien processing centers, and that loss had turned her into something that frightened even veteran resistance fighters. Helen had spent 2 weeks learning how to operate Lisa's weapon systems. Her generator covered the entire northwest suburbs of Chicago. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every piece of alien technology within a 10-mile radius began smoking and sparking. Zephyrian soldiers found their weapons turning to useless metal in their hands. Their armor became dead weight that provided no protection or communication capability. Transport ships began falling from the sky as their engines failed catastrophically. Sam Butler had been waiting for this moment since the invasion began. Sam was a retired Air Force colonel who had fought in 3 different wars before the aliens arrived. He understood military strategy better than anyone in the Chicago resistance. Sam had coordinated the ground assault that would capture alien equipment and prisoners while their technology was disabled. His forces moved like a machine designed for destruction. Construction workers with modified power tools cut through alien barricades. Factory workers with improvised armor advanced under covering fire from modified industrial equipment. Teachers and office workers who had become expert fighters during 3 weeks of guerrilla warfare flanked alien positions using tactics that would have impressed professional soldiers. The aliens tried to retreat, but discovered that humans had learned to think like predators. Every escape route was blocked. Every defensive position was under attack from multiple directions. The Zephyrians had superior individual technology and training, but humans had superior numbers, knowledge of local terrain, and most importantly, they had been fighting for their families and their world. Tony Martinez had spent the morning coordinating communication between resistance groups using his ham radio network. Reports were coming in from around the globe that told the same story everywhere. London was driving the aliens back to their ships using modified underground trains as battering rams. Tokyo was using giant frequency generators built from old karaoke equipment to disable entire alien fleets. Sydney was attacking with weaponized mining equipment that could punch through any alien armor. In Berlin, resistance fighters had turned the city's famous engineering precision against the invaders. German mechanics had created hybrid vehicles that combined car engines with alien technology captured in previous battles. These machines were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Zephyrians could field. Moscow was using the harsh Russian winter as a weapon. Alien soldiers who were adapted for controlled environments could not function effectively in sub-zero temperatures. Russian fighters were using ice and snow to disable alien equipment while attacking with weapons designed to work in extreme cold. The pattern was the same everywhere humans fought back. The aliens had expected to face primitive weapons and disorganized resistance. Instead, they encountered an entire species that had turned warfare into a creative art form. Every human group developed unique tactics that the Zephyrian military computers could not predict or counter. Amy Davis led the civilian evacuation efforts that cleared captured humans away from battle zones. She had organized thousands of volunteers who moved through the city rescuing people from alien processing centers while the main battle raged above them. Amy discovered that many humans were still wearing the alien control collars, but were fighting alongside the resistance anyway. The Zephyrian mind control technology had completely failed against human determination and rage. Pete Johnson achieved legendary status during the final battle, when he single-handedly destroyed an alien command post using nothing but a sledgehammer and 20 years of experience tearing down buildings. Pete had learned exactly where to hit alien structures to make them collapse. His technique was being broadcast over Tony's radio network to resistance fighters around the world. Kelly Brown worked frantically to treat the wounded from both sides of the battle. She had made a disturbing discovery about the Zephyrian retreat. The aliens were not just running away from Earth. They were running away in complete panic. Their retreat was so disorganized that they were leaving behind equipment, wounded soldiers, and even some of their command staff. The final moment came when Carl Phillips succeeded in his suicide attack on the main alien command ship. His jet struck the vessel's central control section and triggered an explosion that could be seen from 50 miles away. The massive ship broke apart and crashed into Lake Michigan, taking with it the central command structure for the entire Earth invasion. Without their command ship, the remaining Zephyrian forces lost all coordination. Individual alien units began surrendering or attempting to escape on their own. But humans had learned to be thorough. Every alien shuttle that tried to leave Earth was tracked and destroyed. Every Zephyrian soldier who tried to hide was hunted down by human search teams. By sunset, the battle was over. The surviving aliens were fleeing Earth in damaged ships that barely functioned. Their mighty invasion fleet had been reduced to a handful of vessels held together with emergency repairs and desperation. The Zephyrians broadcast a final message before disappearing into space. It was not a threat or a promise of return. It was a warning to the rest of the galaxy. "Stay away from the Sol system," the message said. "The third planet contains a species that must never be awakened. They do not fight like civilized beings. They fight like demons who have learned to use tools. They remember every injury and they forgive nothing. We came for slaves, but we found monsters wearing the faces of prey animals." Jake Morrison stood among the ruins of the Alien Processing Center in Grant Park, watching the last enemy ships disappear into the night sky. Around him, other humans were celebrating their victory and mourning their losses. But Jake was already thinking about the future. The aliens had brought technology to Earth that humans could study and improve. They had also brought the knowledge that Earth was not alone in the universe. Humanity had won this war, but Jake suspected it would not be the last. Other alien species would eventually come to Earth. Some might come as friends, but others would certainly come as enemies. When that happened, they would find a species that had learned the most important lesson of all. Humans were not prey animals waiting to be hunted. Humans were the apex predators of a dangerous galaxy, and now the entire universe would know it.